You know that feeling, right? You click buy online, you're all excited for the package to arrive, and then, well, things just don't quite go to plan.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe the item's totally different or it shows up broken.
Or it just vanishes somewhere in shipping purgatory. It happens all the time, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, the speed and convenience of e-commerce, it's amazing. But yeah, it definitely opens the door to a whole unique set of problems for everyone involved, shoppers and sellers.
And today, that's exactly what we're doing, a deep dive straight into those challenges, specifically looking at Chinese e-commerce. We've been going for this really fascinating report from an IT journalist.
Ah, the one digging into consumer troubles.
Yeah, exactly. In
Yeah.
that huge market. We're looking at the legal side, the cultural context, and also some pretty compelling real-world examples pulled straight from complaint data.
Right. So our mission here really is to give you a clear picture of the landscape.
Mhm.
Why do these issues pop up so much in Chinese e-commerce? What legal tools does China actually have in place to protect consumers?
And what do the actual complaints tell us about, the real experience for shoppers day to day?
Exactly. Think of this as your kind of shortcut to getting up to speed on this really crucial part of the Chinese market.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The report kicks off by painting a picture that might feel, well, a bit familiar to anyone who's maybe shopped on a platform that wasn't quite perfect.
Hmm.
There's this anecdote right near the start about ordering, I think it was black snow boots, from a Chinese site and getting brown ones instead.
Right. And the follow-up is even more telling, isn't it? After some, back and forth, the correct black boots did get sent out.
Okay.
But the seller apparently just told the customer, oh, just keep the brown ones. Because sending them back internationally just wasn't worth the cost.
Which, sounds generous on the surface, maybe, but the Force uses it as an example of this certain looseness or maybe pragmatic flexibility you sometimes see.
Yeah, kind of make it work attitude.
And this is then contrasted really sharply with, say, the approach you often find in Japanese retail.
Oh, absolutely. Japanese retail is typically known for meticulous attention to detail, right?
Yeah.
Exceptionally high service standards.
Yeah.
And there's this huge emphasis on building long-term customer relationships. It's all based on trust. The expectation is like near perfection.
And if something does go wrong, which is rare,
Then the resolution process is usually super structured, very focused on making returns or exchanges completely hassle-free,
Yeah.
all to maintain that relationship.
so where does this difference in approach actually stem from?
Well, the report points to a pretty significant cultural factor. It suggests it's particularly influenced by China's huge, very mobile population.
Okay.
So unlike the more relationship-focused model you see in Japan, business interactions in China, especially maybe with people you'll only deal with once, can sometimes lean more towards, well, maximizing the immediate gain.
Like a one-off transaction focus.
Kind of. Selling something at a higher price just because someone agrees to it, maybe even if they don't have all the info, that might just be seen as, clever business.
Almost like buyer beware then.
To an extent, yeah. And look, that kind of skilled negotiation isn't necessarily bad in itself, but the report argues it can easily cross the line.
Into what? Sharp practice?
Sharp practice,
Wow.
or even, yeah, outright fraud if it involves misleading information or really taking advantage of someone not knowing enough.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why you need a strong legal framework.
To step in where maybe the cultural norms don't always guarantee protection.
Precisely. To provide that safety net.
And that's where China's consumer protection law comes in.
Yep, that's the one. It acts as the legal backbone to try and address these potential issues. It's pretty comprehensive, actually, designed to set clear boundaries and responsibilities.
Okay. The report pulls out 3 key features of this law, and one you mentioned we've actually touched on before, Sanbao or Arhis.
Yes, that's right. We covered Sanbao back in volume 072. That's that foundational rule, basically. It sets out the responsibilities for manufacturers and sellers for returns, exchanges, and repairs. The basics.
Got it. And the other 2 big ones.
The big ones are the really widely applicable 7-day no-reason return policy and these provisions that specifically target and, importantly, void overlord clauses.
Okay, let's zoom in on that 7-day no reason return. That sounds incredibly pro-consumer.
It is. It's a very powerful protection. For most online or distance purchases, the law gives you 7 days, starting from when you receive the item,
Right.
to just decide you don't want it for any reason at all. And you can return it for a full refund.
And the seller has to process that quickly.
They have 7 days from getting the item back to issue the refund. That's the rule.
Are there any catches, any exceptions to this?
There are a few notable ones mentioned in the source, things like custom-made goods, fresh food that perishes quickly,
Like that?
downloadable digital content like software or music once you've downloaded it, and also items that were explicitly marked non-returnable when you bought them, but only if that was really clearly communicated up front.
Okay. But here's where it gets, like, really interesting, isn't it? And it shows a difference in legal thinking. The report contrasts this Chinese 7-day rule with the Japanese cooling off system.
Yes, this contrast is really key to understanding the thinking behind each law. They both aim to protect consumers, but they apply in very different situations.
How so?
So, Japan's cooling off rule, that generally applies to sales where you might have felt pressured or you didn't really have enough time to think it through, like door-to-door sales or telemarketing calls.
Right, high pressure situation.
Exactly. But crucially, it usually doesn't apply to standard online shopping. The assumption there is you had plenty of time browsing the website to consider your purchase. No pressure.
So Japan's system protects you from impulsive buys away from a regular store environment?
Pretty much. China's 7-day return rule, though, applies specifically to distance sales, internet, TV shopping, mail order.
Ah,
The legal logic there is completely different. It's because you brought the item without physically inspecting it first. So you need that 7-day window after it arrives to actually examine the product, see if it matches the description, if it fits, if you actually like it in person.
and the report points out the flip side, too. Chinese law doesn't apply this 7-day rule to in-person sales. Even if maybe you were solicited first, if you went to a store and saw the item before buying.
Then no 7-day return right applies because you had your chance to inspect it. It's a fundamental difference in focus, really.
Yeah.
China's law prioritizes your right to inspect goods you bought sight unseen. Japan's focus is more on protection against high-pressure sales tactics. It really shows how legal systems adapt to what they see as the main consumer vulnerabilities in their specific markets.
That's fascinating. Okay, now those overlord clauses. The name itself is pretty evocative. What exactly are they?
Yeah, it's a great name. It basically refers to terms in a contract dictated by the business that are seen as significantly unfair or unreasonably disadvantageous to the consumer.
So the fine print that really screws you over.
Essentially, yes. And under China's law, these clauses are legally void. They don't count, even if you technically clicked, I agree, or signed something.
But how do you decide what's unfair? That sounds subjective.
That's the practical challenge, as the source notes. Determining exactly what counts as significantly unfair often ends up needing a court ruling to clarify.
And the report mentions a really famous example, which is quite surprising, something about drinks in restaurants.
Yes, this became a huge landmark case. It went all the way up to China's Supreme People's Court. The issue was restaurants banning customers from bringing their own drinks.
Right, which seems maybe normal in some places.
Well, the court ultimately ruled that prohibiting customers from bringing their own drinks was an invalid overlord clause.
Really? Why?
Because, they argued, it unfairly restricted the consumer's right to enjoy their meal in their preferred way, especially given, the cultural importance often placed on having specific teas or specific types of alcohol with certain meals in China.
That's interesting because, as the source points out, from a Japanese perspective, many people might just think, well, it's polite, it's reasonable, you buy drinks from the restaurant to support their business.
Exactly. It highlights a different cultural expectation. But the Chinese court decision wasn't just about the money, the cost of the drink. It was about the principle. It was about the dowry.
Ah, yes. Oh, deli. The report really emphasizes how often this word comes up in Chinese disputes.
It really does.
Really?
Dowry, it's often translated as reason or principle, maybe logic. The source notes that in many disagreements, the focus isn't just on who's financially right or wrong, but more on whose position has more dowry.
So it's about fairness, the underlying logic of the situation.
Precisely. You hear phrases like, that makes no dowry, or you need to follow dowry all the time in arguments. It shows that disputes often involve this fundamental disagreement about what is actually fair or reasonable or principled in that specific situation. It's not always just about the facts or the money lost.
So resolving these issues isn't just about, like, applying the strict letter of the law. It often involves arguing about these deeper principles.
Very much so.
And despite these strong laws, the 7-day return, the Overlord Clause rules of the report makes it really clear that problems are still super common. It draws on data from these private consumer complaint platforms, right? During the 2021 Double 11 Shopping Festival.
Absolutely. The troubles are definitely still there. And the report suggests something interesting. that the very existence of these strong laws might actually empower both sides, consumers and sellers, to assert their claims more forcefully.
How so?
Well, people know their rights, or what they believe their rights are, and they're not afraid to demand them. This can sometimes lead to more open conflict, more disputes, rather than maybe quieter compromises you might see elsewhere.
Okay, so let's look at some of the patterns then. What common issues actually come up in this complaint data? One major area seems to be just trying to use that 7-day return policy.
Right. The law might be clear, but actually making it happen. Consumers face real practical hurdles. A really common issue is customer service just making the return process difficult or dragging it out.
Like running out the clock.
Exactly. The report mentions cases where customers get stuck dealing with chatbots.
Okay.
The bot can't actually process the return, and they can't get through to a human agent before the 7 days are up. And then they're told, sorry, too late.
Wow. So whether it's intentional or just bad design, the platform's own system becomes a barrier to exercising a legal right.
Precisely. Another pattern involves platforms refusing refunds based on really narrow interpretations of their own policies. Even in situations like, say, COVID isolation, preventing someone from attending an event they bought tickets for online.
Hmm.
The platform might argue, well, your isolation, that's a personal reason, it's not covered by our refund terms,
Yeah.
even though the root cause was a public health measure completely outside the customer's control.
That feels like it goes against the whole spirit of consumer protection, doesn't it?
It certainly can feel that way.
What about issues beyond just simple returns? Quality seems to be a big one.
Yeah, quality issues are a significant source of complaints, particularly, it seems, in areas like live commerce.
Ah, the live streams where people sell stuff.
Exactly. The report highlights how descriptions there can be, well, let's say misleading, like calling K24 gold, 100% gold, which, okay, maybe isn't technically false, but it sets an expectation that might differ from what a buyer understands as standard gold purity.
It sounds like that line between, clever marketing and actual false advertising can get really blurry.
It really can. The report gives examples like used electronics being sold described as having a genuine battery based on some platform inspection.
Okay.
But then the customer gets it and finds out, nope, it's not genuine. Or jewelry sold as pure silver during a live stream that clearly reacts to a magnet when the buyer gets it home, meaning you can't be pure silver.
And getting that sorted out is tough.
It can be. Getting the platform to properly investigate or even acknowledge the misleading description can be a real uphill battle sometimes.
Shipping problems also seem like a huge category. The report mentioned issues with delivery time promises that are kind of ambiguous, like fastest 30-minute delivery.
That phrasing is a classic example, isn't it? Legally, fastest isn't really a guarantee of a specific time. So if it's late, it's not technically a lie.
But for the customer,
Right? For the customer, it sets a very clear expectation. And when that expectation isn't met, it causes huge frustration. It can even cause real financial losses sometimes.
like the example of the restaurant owner.
Yeah, losing business because supplies they were promised by a certain time showed up hours late, despite assurances. The platform might refund the delivery cost, but not the lost business.
And sometimes the problems go way beyond just delays, right? Like wrong deliveries or even abusive sellers.
Absolutely. There are cases in the report of delivery staff going to the completely wrong address and then just canceling the order without ever delivering it, leaving the customer to fight for a refund for food they never got.
That's
And then there was that really shocking case. After a customer got just a small compensation from a platform for a delayed service, the seller actually used the platform's chat function to send this incredibly abusive, threatening message to the customer. Something about buying hell money.
wow. That's escalating a simple service complaint into something else entirely.
It really highlights the potential for these interactions to become directly hostile when disputes aren't handled well. Other shipping issues mentioned include platforms claiming they tried to deliver when tracking shows the item never even left the warehouse, or refusing refunds for delayed items based on some technicality invoked after the item finally ships.
It really sounds like that whole journey, from clicking buy to actually getting the right item and being happy with it is just fraught with potential pitfalls.
It certainly can be.
What about problems specifically around exchanges or getting the wrong order entirely?
Yeah, that's another common headache, especially with things like clothing sizes or just receiving completely the wrong product. The report notes particular difficulties that come up with cross-border purchases.
Because they often have strict policies.
Exactly. Often, no return, no exchange is standard. So even if the size is drastically different from what you expected, maybe even based on trying it on locally, you might be stuck.
So doing your homework on sizing might not even save you sometimes.
It might not if the policy is strict. Other cases involve getting the wrong color item, and the platform's own records somehow claim you ordered that wrong color. Essentially, they refuse to believe your account of what you actually clicked.
That sounds infuriating.
Or, maybe one of the most frustrating ones,
Hmm.
you return an item correctly for an exchange, but the platform just delays endlessly. First, they say they don't have the correct size in stock, then maybe they don't have the right color in stock.
Just stalling.
Or worse, sometimes they even claim you, the customer, must have swapped the item for something else when you returned it.
Wow, flipping the blame entirely onto the consumer. That's pretty bad.
It definitely undermines trust.
And circling back to those overlord clauses and the whole issue of platform responsibility, how do those connect?
Yes, they're often linked, especially on these big marketplace platforms like Taobao or Meituan, where you have lots of individual sellers operating under the platform's umbrella.
Right.
The report highlights issues where the platform acts as the intermediary, they sell you the service, but then they don't actually provide the necessary tools for you to manage it. Like needing a specific paper voucher to change a flight ticket you bought through the platform, but the platform makes it really hard or unclear how to actually get that voucher.
So they sell it but don't fully support it. And when things go wrong, do platforms sometimes try to just step back?
Precisely. That's a common complaint pattern. Platforms telling customers, oh, you need to resolve this directly with the individual seller, even for quite serious things, like finding hair in your food delivery.
Shouldn't food safety involve the platform?
You'd think so, right? But sometimes they push it back to the restaurant. And a particularly risky situation the report flags is when sellers convince customers to take the transaction off the platform.
Like paying through WeChat instead to avoid fees.
Exactly. But if something goes wrong, then say part of the order is missing. The platform has no record of that specific transaction. They'll likely refuse any help, and the customer is left trying to chase down an unresponsive seller directly, often with no luck.
Okay, so that really underscores why it's so important to keep transactions on the platform. Even if the platform itself isn't always perfect, it offers at least some layer of potential protection.
Definitely a key takeaway.
So with all these potential troubles brewing, how do consumers in China actually go about resolving these disputes? What are the channels?
Well, there are official channels. Things like local government consumer protection committees. They function a bit like consumer centers you might find in Japan or elsewhere. They handle complaints, they try to mediate.
Okay, the official route.
But the report puts quite a bit of focus on the role of private consumer complaint platforms. It mentions specific names like Hey Mall, Batusu Black Cat Complaints, and Ni Diansubao E-Complaint Treasure.
And what makes these private platforms significant? How are they different?
The report highlights one really key difference compared to many similar sites you might see elsewhere. They publicly publish the names of the companies involved in the complaints.
Ah, so they name and shame, essentially.
You could put it that way, yes. But it's really about transparency.
That feels like a potentially powerful tool for consumers then.
It really is. This transparency is crucial. It means potential customers can easily go online and see which businesses have a histories of complaints. They can see what the common issues are with a particular seller or platform.
So it informs future choices.
Exactly. And it puts significant public pressure on those businesses to actually resolve the complaints that are filed. Because having a poor track record full of unresolved issues is visible to absolutely everyone. It damages their reputation.
So it acts as both a way for consumers to seek resolution and a kind of public warning system or reputation tracker.
That's a good way to put it. And these platforms often go a step further. They also publish the business's response to the complaint, if they provide one. And sometimes they even include evaluations from, say, legal experts or consumer rights advocates. The aim seems to be creating a neutral, transparent public record of the dispute and how or if it got resolved.
Okay. So pulling all this together then, the report really paints this picture of two quite different approaches to consumer protection when you compare China and Japan.
Definitely.
Japan seems to rely heavily on this cultural foundation, right? High service standards, mutual trust, hospitality baked into the system. Whereas China, on the other hand, leans much more heavily on having really strict legal frameworks, mandating information disclosure, and creating a system where both consumers and businesses are kind of expected and empowered to really assert their rights, even if that means more visible conflict sometimes.
It's a really really fascinating difference in approach,
Hmm.
isn't it? Both systems are ultimately aiming for a similar goal, a well-functioning market where consumers feel protected, but they're using very different mechanisms, different levers to try and achieve that.
Yeah. This deep dive has certainly shown us that while Chinese e-commerce operates under some pretty robust legal protections on paper, the practical reality for consumers often involves navigating these really complex situations, having to actively assert their rights, sometimes quite publicly, through these complaint platforms.
Right. Understanding this dynamic makes the law, the culture, the real-world friction, it's pretty essential if you're buying from or even just interacting with this market.
Indeed. And it really makes you think, doesn't it, about how deeply those underlying cultural values can shape the specific system a society designs to achieve what seems like a universal goal, like ensuring consumer rights. Which I guess leaves us with a final thought to ponder. Is that Japanese model, the one built on high service stemming from cultural trust and relationships, ultimately the more sustainable path for building long-term consumer confidence? Or is the Chinese approach relying on strict laws, very transparent complaint data, and maybe the consumer's willingness to fight for Dowley actually a more necessary or perhaps even more effective system given its specific context and scale? Which way really builds better trust in the long run?